How dangerous is alcoholism? Is there any benefit from alcohol? And what do doctors say about it? Let's consider this from the medical point of view. The first mention of the problems associated with alcohol and alcoholism can be found as early as in ancient literature. For example, the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest literary works written in Mesopotamia around 2100 BC, describes a character named Enkidu who was addicted to alcohol and drinking. It is said that he drank wine 7 days and 7 nights, and then died from an illness caused precisely by alcoholism. Ancient Indian literature, such as the Vedas and the Upanishads, also mention the negative effects of excessive drinking. It is described that the use of alcohol can lead to a violation of spiritual practice, leading a person to sin and a downward spiral. In ancient China, there were also instructions to reduce alcohol consumption. The Book of Songs, one of the oldest Chinese literary works, contains a warning that excessive drinking can be the reason for unhappiness and family destruction. Thus, the first references to the problems associated with alcohol and alcohol abuse can be found as early as in the ancient literary works of various cultures. They indicate that the problems of alcohol addiction have been known to mankind since ancient times. Alcoholism is in fact one of the oldest diseases recorded in history. Cases of alcohol consumption and its effects on the human body have been described since ancient Egypt and Greece. In ancient Egypt, for example, a drink called zythum was known, which was made from fruits and grains. Its use was popular among ordinary people and even kings, but it was also associated with health problems, such as liver cirrhosis, which was not known at the time, but was described as an eating from the inside disease. Ancient Greece also had records of problems related to drinking alcohol. Aristotle, for example, described the detrimental effects of alcoholism and its impact on human health. During the Middle Ages, alcohol became a popular drink in Europe, thus causing new health problems. For many years, alcoholism was considered not a disease, but a bad habit. However, in the late 19th century and early 20th century, scientific research discovered that alcoholism was a disease that could lead to serious health problems. The current medical science has a good knowledge of how alcoholism affects the body and how to treat it. However, this issue still remains one of the most significant public health problems worldwide. Some of the oldest records of the intoxicating drink are biblical narratives. Everyone knows the situation when the Son of God, Jesus, turned water into wine at a wedding. According to this, the Bible does not consider alcohol a forbidden drink, but at the same time warns about the possible negative consequences of its consumption and recommends moderation in the use of alcohol. For example, the scriptures in the book of Proverbs, chapter 20, verse 1 says, "Wine is a mocker, strong drink is a brawler, and whoever is led astray by them is not wise." There are also a number of examples of people getting drunk and getting into trouble, such as Noah, Lot, and many others. At the same time, the Bible also speaks of the health benefits of moderate drinking. However, it also warns that drunkenness can result in sin and separation from God. For example, Ephesians 5:18 says, "And do not get drunk with wine, for that is dissipation, but be filled with the Spirit." So, the Bible teaches us to be moderate in our drinking and warns us against drunkenness, which can lead to bad consequences and sin. Although in ancient Israel the use of alcohol was still widespread, in spite of restrictions and warnings against its abuse. The Hebrew scriptures of the Bible, for example, teach that priests were not to drink wine and strong liquor while performing their duties in the temple. Leviticus 10:9 says, "You and your sons are not to drink wine or other fermented drink whenever you go into the tent of meeting, or you will die." This was due to their high responsibility to God and the people. At the same time, the Jews had certain holidays when it was customary to drink wine and other drinks. For example, on Passover, it was necessary to drink wine with lamb meat. This food symbolized the exit of the Israelites from Egypt. Despite the instructions in the Bible regarding moderate drinking, there were still those who abused alcohol. Therefore, in ancient Israel, there were certain measures to curb alcoholism. The book of Proverbs warns that drinking alcohol can lead to depravity and poverty. Whoever loves pleasure will become poor. Whoever loves wine and olive oil will never be rich. Proverbs 21:17. Beyond that, a rule was established that communication with drunkards was kept to a minimum. But now I have written unto you not to keep company, if any man that is called a brother be a drunkard. With such a one, no, not to eat. 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 11. Thus, in ancient Israel, alcohol was a common drink, but its use was limited and controlled to prevent abuse and its negative effects on health and society. In ancient Egypt, alcohol was also widely consumed by both priests and ordinary people. The spread of alcohol in Egypt was facilitated by the fact that there were many gods and objects of worship who supposedly were the patrons of alcohol. For example, in Egyptian mythology, there is a legend about the god of beer, Khepri, who was responsible for making beer and protecting those who drank it. The gods in ancient Egypt were also often depicted with a pint of wine or other drinks, symbolizing their benevolence and generosity. However, in Egypt, there were also rules and regulations that controlled drinking to prevent alcohol abuse. For example, rules were put into place for brewers that obliged them to brew beer only from quality ingredients and to control its alcoholic strength. It was also forbidden to drink alcohol at work or in public places. Besides, in ancient Egypt, there were laws that punished drunk people. For example, fines have been set for a drunk person being guilty of a crime or causing damage to other people's property. There were also laws that prohibited sellers of alcohol from selling it to people who were already drunk. Medo-Persia, also known as the Achaemenid Empire, was one of the most important ancient states that flourished from 550 to 330 BC. Alcohol culture in this empire was quite developed, although it was somewhat different than had existed in neighboring regions. In Medo-Persia, the most common alcoholic beverage was wine, which was made from grapes. Beer and mead were also popular. Wine has been known in Medo-Persia since ancient times and was considered the drink of the elite. For example, in the Persian epic Shahnameh, mentions that King Faridun held a feast and served his guests costly wines. However, there were also religious restrictions on alcohol consumption. For example, in the Zoroastrian religion, which was widespread in Medo-Persia, alcohol was considered unclean and unacceptable for priests. There were also laws and regulations governing the sale and consumption of alcohol, which were introduced by King Cyrus II. In general, drinking was common in Medo-Persia, but it was more associated with luxury and the elite than with mass consumption. Religious restrictions also played a role in controlling alcohol consumption, reflecting the general morality and cultural norms of this empire. To be continued in the next episode. Stay tuned.